Good day, everyone. Today, we were going to present to you a research paper entitled Perceived Level of Stress and Coping Mechanisms in the Online Distance Learning of the College of Education Students. But before that, let us introduce first ourselves.
I am Althea May Avilino, taking up Bachelor of Elementary Education.
I am Ivyjoy M. Calamba, taking up Bachelor of Elementary Education.
I am May Antigo Nyabo, taking up Bachelor of Elementary Education.
I am Angeline P. Santillan, taking up Bachelor of Elementary Education.
I am Rashali M. Soto, taking up Bachelor of Elementary Education.
And we are
the researchers.
First, I will be presenting to you the introduction. First, the background of the study. Stress has become an intrinsic element of life and body's reaction in today's world since it is no longer restricted to adults. COVID-19's current situation catalyzes increasing student stress. Stress has undoubtedly become the most commonly recognized hindrance to academic success. So stress is an inescapable aspect of students' life since it negatively impacts the physical health, emotional well-being, and academic performance of the majority of students. During the COVID-19 pandemic, college education students frequently encounter feelings of isolation, anxiety, sadness, and disorientation. Low academic mechanisms and personality variations may contribute to increased stress, leading to poor academic performance. So in light of the aforementioned circumstances, we, the researchers, are eager to determine the level of stress and coping mechanisms experienced by students enrolled in the online distance learning program at Notre Dame of Mid-Sayat College. Next, statement of the problem. The study aims to determine the level of stress and coping mechanisms for online distance learning among College of Education students at Notre Dame of Mid-Sayat College. Specifically, it seeks to answer the following questions. First, what is the socio-demographic profile of the respondents in terms of sex and age? Second, what is the level of stress of the respondents in online distance learning? Third, what are the coping mechanisms of the respondents in online distance learning? And the last one is there a significant difference in the level of stress of the respondents when grouped according to sex and age? Significance of the study. The findings of the study may be helpful to the College of Education teachers, other faculty and staff, school health services and counselors in the Dean of Students Office, Dean of Faculties and Directors of School, future researchers, parents and guardians of the students, and lastly, the students. The findings of the study will enable them to make appropriate decisions to enable the students to lead a less stressful life and to help them manage the challenges they face while studying. Scope and limitations. The study will focus on the level of stress of the respondents and their coping mechanisms in online distance learning. The respondents are limited only to the College of Education students for academic year 2021-2022. The study will also measure if there is a significant difference in the level of stress among respondents in terms of their sex and age. Next, Theoretical framework. This study is anchored in the transactional model, which states that stress is caused through interactions with other people, according to Lazarus and Folkman, 1984. The stress theory of Lazarus and Folkman is beneficial as a frame of a study since it will allow us to understand better how students respond to various levels of stress and how this may impact their academic performance. Next, conceptual framework. So figure 1 shows the illustration of the variables of the study. It displays both the dependent variable and independent variable. So these variables are connected and linked to form a test in this study. The independent variable focuses on online distance learning. Meanwhile, the dependent variables focuses on the level of stress of college of education students and coping mechanisms. The arrow that points from the dependent variables and dependent variables indicates that the online distance learning causes stress on students and at the same time develops coping mechanisms. The intervening variable, which is the demographic characteristic of the respondents in terms of sex and age, somehow affect the significant difference in the level of stress. The last one is hypothesis. Null hypothesis. The researchers hypothesize that there is no significant difference in the level of stress of the respondents when grouped according to sex and age.
This time, I will be presenting the methods that we use in conducting the study. Research design. The researchers employed a descriptive research methodology to describe the respondents' demographic features, stress levels, and coping mechanisms in online distance learning. It assisted the researchers in establishing the significance of the relationship between sex and age and the respondents' stress levels. The researchers methodologically designed the descriptive method as a research design to ensure the validity and reliability of the findings. Local and respondents of the study. The study will be conducted at Notre Dame of Messiah College. The study's respondents are the College of Education students who are currently enrolled for the academic year 2021 to 2022. A total of 50 respondents will be chosen for this study. Sampling technique. This study utilized convenience sampling. It is a non-probability sampling technique that collects data from members of the population who are conveniently available to participate in the study. Instrumentation. The researchers will use a researcher-made quest survey. The survey questionnaire is divided into 3 parts using the closed-ended questions. Part 1 is the demographic profile of the respondents, which includes sex and age. Part 2 is about the level of stress of the respondents in online distance learning. Part 3 consists of questions about the coping mechanisms used by the respondents, validity and reliability of the instrument. The questionnaire will undergo the process of validation. The thesis advisor and the panel members will critically scrutinize the contents of the instrument. The revision will be based on the recommendations and comments. After the validation, the questionnaire will be pilot tested on 10 education students not included in the study. Cronbach Alpha will be used to compute data collected during the pilot test. The consistency of the score with an R value of 0.7 will determine the reliability of the questionnaire. Data gathering procedure. The researchers will survey the College of Education students of Notre Dame Mabitsayap College to gather relevant data on their level of stress and coping mechanisms in online distance learning. In conducting the survey, first, the researchers will secure approval from the Dean of the College of Education. Upon approval, researchers will conduct a study entitled Perceived Level of Stress and Coping Mechanisms in the Online Distance Learning of the College of Education students. The questionnaire was used as a tool in collecting data for a study. Before it was distributed, it was checked and approved by the thesis advisor. The respondents will be informed about the purpose of the study before the questionnaire is given to them. Questionnaires will be retrieved right after they finish answering the questions. Health and safety protocols will be observed during the conduct of the study. All information gathered from the respondents will be treated with the utmost confidentiality. Statistical treatment and tools of data. The data will be subject to appropriate statistical tools with the help of the researcher's statistician. Frequency count and percentage distribution was used in problem 1 to determine the demographic profile of the respondents. The weighted mean will be computed in problems 2 and 3. In problem 4, one-way ANOVA will be utilized to test the significant differences in stress level when grouped according to sex and age.
Today, I'll be presenting the result of our research. As you can see on the table, 1. It is the demographic characteristics of respondents in terms of age and sex of the 50 respondents. 11 or 22% are 20 and 21 years old. It is followed by the 19 years old with a frequency of 10 or equivalent to 20%. The list is 18 and 22 years old with the same frequency of 9 or equivalent to 18%. The mean age of the respondents is 20.02 years old. For the sex of the respondents, they have an equal number of respondents of 25, which is equivalent to 50%. So the respondents' perceptions on the level of stress in online distance learning is found in Table 2, the level of stress. So the respondents rated 10 items on their stress level in online distance learning. The first item with the highest mean score of 4.460 is item 1, which states, how often have you been frustrated by a bad internet connection during online distance learning? It is described as very often, with a standard deviation of 0.788. So the least mean score was obtained by item 7, which states, how often have you felt irritated in your academic life? With a standard deviation of 0.995. So the overall mean score is 3.982, described as fairly often with a standard deviation of 0.893. So the table 3 deals with the coping mechanisms of the respondents in online distance learning. They rated 15 items as to their agreement or disagreement with each item on coping mechanisms. The first item, which gained the highest mean of 4.480, is item 11. I've been praying or meditating whenever I feel tired and stressed. This earns the description of strongly agree with the standard deviation of 0.707. So the least mean score of 3.380, described as moderately agree, is item 5. I've been playing online games to release tension and pressure with a standard deviation of 1.380. The overall mean is 4.072 with a standard deviation of 0.886, which is described as agree.
Table 4 reflects the computed difference between the age of the respondents and their level of stress in online distance learning. The mean perspective rating for the male respondents is 4.292, while for females, the mean is 3.672, both interpreted as fairly often. It means there is significant difference in the level of stress when grouped by sex, since the p-value is 0.001 is less than the level confidence of 0.05. Thus, the null hypothesis, there is no significant difference in the level of stress of the respondents when grouped according to sex is rejected for respondents have significantly differed in their views considering their sex. Table 5 shows the significant difference in the level of stress if grouped according to the age of the respondents. The result indicates the significant difference in the level of stress when grouped by age, since the p-value is 0.037 is less than the level of confidence of 0.05. Thus, the null hypothesis that there is no significant difference in the level of stress of the respondents when grouped according to the age is rejected. Further respondents have significantly differed in their views considering their age. In other words, there is significant difference between the ages 18 and 22 and above.
I will be discussing to you the summary and findings of the study. Typical research responder is a Notre Dame of Messiah College education student, age 20 to 21. According to the data, they were concerned about their online distance learning, poor internet connections, financial difficulties, and disruptions in their academic lives frequently frustrate them. They also felt physically stressed as a result of an unsuitable learning environment, as well as fatigue and irritability while completing their coursework. During their online distance learning, the education students agreed that they used coping mechanisms to reduce their stress levels. They should think about the advantages of online distance learning, and they should play online games to relieve stress and tension. Furthermore, the stress level of education students varies greatly depending on their age and gender. According to the findings, education students face varying degrees of stress during their online distance learning. And lastly, the conclusion of the study. So, based on the study's finding, it is possible to conclude that the COVID-19's online distance learning is causing stress among Notre Dame of Messiah College of Education students. A bad internet connection, financial problems, disruptions in academic life, an unsuitable learning environment, exhaustion, and irritation while completing their coursework are the most common causes of stress in dealing with online distance learning. To combat their level of stress in their online distance learning, education students of all ages and genders used positive coping techniques. Furthermore, the stress level of education students varies greatly depending on their age and gender. But according to the findings, education students face varying degrees of stress during their online distance learning.
So that ends our presentation. Thank you for listening. Keep safe and God bless.